Okay, so I made a video a couple days ago. I was talking about this Paralink that I just purchased. It'll be here in 2 days. That's Monday for me. It'll probably be Wednesday before you get to see the video. And what it does is, right now this is a 20 amp receptacle. I don't know, maybe you can see that 20 amps. So that's at max. So on startup, you're getting 20 amps, and then it drops down mathematically. It drops down to 16 point something, like, I don't know, 16.6 amps, which is basically 15 amps. But what the Paralink does is you can run both these generators at the same time. There's a little attachment, and you plug them into these holes here, and it multiplies, doubles the output of the generator. So I'm getting this so I can run this welder more efficiently. I learned a lot today in a video about these welders. Actually today, and I guess yesterday also, which I'll explain a little bit of what I learned today in this video. So I'm having trouble getting the amps up on the welder. Now, I don't always need to run the amps up on this welder either. Everything I've done except one thing, which is I welded a new handle onto a hammer. I meant to bring it over here. You might be able to see a screenshot of it here. I was working on it. What was happening was the generator kept tripping its circuit breaker here. So I ran it up just a little bit, about mid-range for this particular welding stick I was using, which I'll explain a little bit of that too if I don't forget. It would trip, so I would only get to run it 2 or 3 seconds, and it would trip and I would have to restart it. So I decided to buy this Paralink. Now, this welder, according to the instructions on the bottom, mathematical instructions, I should be able to run for 6 minutes before it needs to rest. Well, I'm not going to ever weld anything for 6 minutes. I mean, my goodness, the welding stick wouldn't last that long. So, you know, if I could get it to run 30 seconds to a minute before this would trip the reset, the generators, that would be perfect for me. And the other thing is I have to run this on gasoline, which is a big pain. I know, quit whining, I get it. But every time I put gasoline in it, I have to make sure I drain the gasoline out that day, because I don't know when the next time will be that I get to use it. So I always drain it every time. If I run it on propane, then I don't have to drain the gas out of the carburetor, risking, you know, carburetor damage or anything. So I would like to run it on propane. With the Paralink, I should be able to. I mean, if you think about it, we're going to be running 30 amps. This is 20 amps at peak. Basically 15 amps running amps. So at 30 amps, I should be able to start up the welder just fine and run the welder just fine, because the welder is pulling consistently, not at peak, but all the time, about 20 amps. So at 30 amps, I should be fine. Now, that gets me up to 75 amps on my welder. So this little knob you can adjust, and it gets you up to 75 amps. I know for a fact that'll get me up to 75. But Monday, I'm going to test all this. On video, I'm going to test what we can do on gas, what we can do on propane, if there's any difference. I don't think there's going to be any difference. Propane runs less wattage than gas. So propane and gas both provide you 2,500 watts peak, you know, startup watts. But then it comes back down. Gas gives you 1,850 and propane gives you 1,600. I think a little over 1,600. I forget the specifics. It might say on this tag right here. No, it doesn't. No, 1,665. It's right here. I don't know if you can see it. So we're at 1,850 with gas, 1,665 with propane. That's running watts, not peak. So if I'm running 30, if you do the math, if I'm running 30 amps with the two, I shouldn't have any problems on propane, which would be fantastic. It's a little bit more setup work because I got to hook the propane tanks up, but a lot less breakdown, a lot less. So I want to run the propane. Now, what I learned about welders today is these, which goes along with a subscriber. I got a comment from a subscriber the other day, a better welder. Specifically, he called out a specific name brand. I looked it up today. That's actually how I figured this all out. He was upset that I don't go out and invest more money on my tools for my shop, you know, my lawn repair hobby. I made a video not long ago saying, look, overhead costs. You got to think about overhead cost. I'm trying to keep my costs low for my customers. The more I buy, the more I got to charge the customers, and they're not going to pay it. So why spend it? If they don't require a $2,000 welder to fix their lawnmower, then why should I buy that welder? They're not going to pay me for that welder. They'll pay me $40 for this welder, and they'll be happy with that weld. It may look like garbage, but they'll be happy with it. But what I did learn is I've been having some troubles trying to figure out how to weld well with you know, practicing and everything, trying to get as good as these guys on YouTube, these instructors, and I've just not had a lot of success. And I thought I was getting frustrated with myself, like, boy, I'm just not figuring this out. But what I learned is these welders are not very consistent. They have their issues. So not this particular welder, but a welder much like it from China, you know, a $40 or $50 welder. They tested, and when they took it up to 110 amps, it was only producing, they had the meter you could wrap around the cord. I don't have one of those. I used to. I might get another one, but the only reason I would use it is for this welder. And it was only producing 80. So 110 was actually only producing 80. Whereas the really expensive 2000 welder was producing 110. So it's just more accurate, more reliable. Well, that's okay. If I turn up the amperage instead of 110, let's say I need 110. If I turn up to 140, for example, I don't know. If I had that meter, I would know. Then I might get the 110. But I will never need the 140. I don't need the 140 now. I don't need the 110 now. So what I need is electric, which is what is causing I think my biggest problem is I'm not getting consistent electric. It could be, but regardless, if I'm always having to start and stop, that is causing me issues. So even though the troll was, I guess, accurate in what he was saying, it's not realistic for a small hobby business to go out and buy a shop, you know, build a shop so I can store $1 billion worth of tools, get myself $1 billion welder, and not have any customers because they're not going to be able to afford what I'm selling. It's just a wrong mentality. My trolls really think they have life figured out, but the only thing they have figured out is how to sit on a keyboard telling everybody else how they're doing it wrong, all the while the people they're saying that are doing it wrong are successful. I mean, we put our sign out in June, advertised in 3 Facebook groups, and I was so busy over the summer I could barely stand it, and I'm still getting customers coming regularly, not every day, but regularly. So I think what we're going to do is, you know, I really do try to take care of this generator. I store it away. I don't leave it outside. Look how dirty it is compared to the new one. I mean, this one's not actually that old. It definitely hasn't been ran that much, but boy, it just collects dust. I guess I could take the pressure washer to it and kind of knock it off, but oh well. So what I'm going to do is on Monday I'm going to start both of these up with the Paralink and hook the welder up to it, and I'm going to try these, well, maybe not that stick, these two for sure. Now when you order these online, make sure you read when you get it. I ordered this one. This is the best for me. I use this one. I can use this one really well. This one was really hard to use, which again might have something to do with the generator and the welder. So maybe with the new Paralink I won't have a problem with this quite as much. But anyway, I am going to test both of these on gasoline at different amperages. I am going to try it at, you get a range of amperages for these welding sticks. So I'll try, I guess 50. I've had a lot of luck with 50. It's a little low most cases for thinner material, but 50 has really served me well with the 6013. So anyway, as I was saying, I ordered 6013. They sent me 6011. So make sure you watch. I already had 6011. I don't use this as much. The only reason I would use it is if I've ever got thick material that I wanted to weld. And I just don't see myself doing it. So I had one box. Now I got two. So I ended up getting 3 of these. This is 6013, but it's a 1/16. You might see right there, 1/16. And this one's bigger at 3/32. So that's the one I like the most. It does really well. Now this one, I had trouble with getting an arc to strike. And that might have something to do with the welder itself not reading the right amperage. You're supposed to run this one from 20 to 40 amps. And I may not be getting enough amps to strike an arc with this. So I want to play with that also. So I'm going to run different tests, different amperages on Monday. Then what I'm going to try is drain the gas out of these, because I'm going to test them on gas, and then I'm going to try to run it on propane and see if the propane can handle it at the different amperages. Now remember, I'm sure there's going to be a guy out there that says, oh no, you need to make sure you can run it at 110, 140 amps. I'm not going to weld anything that thick. The only reason I really have to have a welder for the more repair shop, more repair hobby thing, is so I can weld more decks. Occasionally I might get a bracket or something that I need to weld. I welded a bracket already for a lawnmower for a customer. It was a small bracket, didn't take much of a weld, was easy to weld, and I welded that at 110 amps. But like I said, it was a small weld. I mean, it probably wasn't even an inch long. So the generator did okay with it. It also might have something to do with the hammer. I mean, the hammer was just a really thick metal, so that could have been my problem also. Regardless, I'm not going to need a lot of amps. If I can get up to 75 to 90 amps with the Paralink, I'll be very happy with that, without it bogging down and me stressing that I'm going to hurt the generator somehow or another. And if I can run enough propane, that's even that much better. The point of this video is I do get a lot of comments telling me what I need to buy, and I don't understand why that occurs. I am a minimalist. I try to figure out how to live life minimalistically in everything I do. I mean, my goodness, guys, I live in a small shed that I built during the pandemic when prices were really high, $5,000. You know, somebody brought something up the other day. These boards. I put one screw in the boards, and I bet I had 1 million comments telling me that these boards were going to buckle. They were going to horseshoe. Because you got to have 3 screws. You got to have 3 screws. You got to have 3 screws. Well, this has been in here nearly, what, 3 years now? And the boards are dry now. And none of them, not a one of them, have buckled. The other thing you hear all the time, oh, you got to have it upside down. Your horseshoe needs to be, I guess, down. Here's one. I mean, I didn't really pay attention to which way I was going with them. I guess they are mostly all down. Oh, there's one. That one's upside down according to some of the people. This should have been turned up the other way. But it didn't buckle. So, what's the deal? Why is it that everybody wants to spend $1 billion? If I'd had to put 2 more screws in there would have been another $100 trying to get all those screws in there. Just wasting money. Oh, you gotta have it. You're gonna ruin all your wood. Well, if that would have happened, if I was wrong, I already had a plan, and I said it in that video years ago. I would take all the screws up, flip every board over, and put the 3 screws in. So I had a backup plan. I would have squished it back down to the correct position. But I knew it wasn't going to happen because I have the required spacing underneath. If people would just do their research instead of just assuming you throw money at a problem, just research, we will learn quickly, like I said in that video, that it's getting dried evenly on both sides and it's not going to buckle. It didn't buckle. The reason people do not succeed in life is they just go on common knowledge. Oh, the code inspector requires 3 screws. You got to have 3 screws because the code inspector said so. Okay, well, except I don't have a code inspector because the code inspector didn't want to come out and look at it. So why do what the code inspector said to do? He told me to build it. I said, okay, so I built it. So I don't have to have a code inspector. I don't have to make it to code. I just have to make it work. And people, it just drives me insane. Constantly throwing money at a problem when all you need to throw at it is a brain. So, if you click this up next box, it'll take you to a video where I was talking about these generators. So if I can inspire you, have a brain so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.